Welcome to this week's episode of the Prep Athletics Podcast. I'm proud to have on Coach Jared Grasso, who is now the head coach at the Knox School on Long Island, oldest prep school in the state of New York. And Jared's former D1 point guard. He coached at Hofstra, coached at Fordham, and then became one of the youngest head coaches at Bryant University. And actually, after his first year there, they tripled the number of wins from the previous year, which was a record at the time. He's very unconventional in his old days of giving out tons of offers, right? Tons of offers the first day he could, which kind of put Bryant on the map. And he's an outside-the-box thinker when it comes to some aspects of coaching. And I know his first year there, I had two players in the team, both prep school kids, and they did great for him. And now he's at the Knox School, and already I think he's 29-5 right now, beating some big-time teams already. So that is going to be quickly become a national powerhouse. And he really talks about all the time you can get in the gym at Knox School, how he gets you ready for college because he knows what colleges want. And I'm just really glad he could come on and share a little bit about himself and about his way of doing things. If you like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter on prepathletics.com. We are more than happy to help anybody with any prep school questions you have. And one of our things we do is educate you on all the ins and outs of the prep school world. And by doing coaching interviews like this, you learn more about the prep school world, college recruiting, and this prep school and coach specifically. So enjoy this podcast with Coach Jared Grasso of the Knox School. Welcome to the Prep Athletics Podcast. This is Corey Heights.
Some battles. I'm not sure if they got us. If they did, maybe.
So you will get better as a player during that year.
So it was kind of exciting. Like, oh yeah, somebody wants me.
Jared, welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you having me, Corey.
Now, you grew up in Long Island. You were a very good basketball player, and then you ended up choosing going to Quinnipiac. First off, where did you get your love of basketball? And secondly, of all the colleges recruiting you, what led you to go to Quinnipiac?
My father was a coach, so being the son of a coach, I grew up in the gym. My dad coached at the high school, college, and professional levels. I grew up around the game, was kind of all I knew. I tell people my dad gave me a basketball when I was 3 years old, and I still haven't let go of it. So that's where the passion and love for the game came from. And I was lucky. I was blessed to be around really good coaches at a young age. My dad worked for Rick Pitino, obviously is a Hall of Famer. Steve Clifford was an NBA coach. My dad worked with him at Adelphi. Was around really good coaches and really good basketball people, and that's kind of where my love for the game came from.
Gotcha. And then Quinnipiac, what was the decision-making on that? Because you're helping kids now, right, with their college choices. And I'm just so curious to find out, when you chose, what was your deciding factors?
Yep. Joe DeSantis started recruiting me really hard. And that's when, letters were big, and he would send me letters in the mail. I was getting letters every day. He was a New Yorker. My dad knew him. Great player at Talentine High School, second-round NBA draft pick, who was a really good guard and wanted to play for someone who I knew I would develop under. Quinnipiac was going into division. It was going to be their first year, Division I, was going to be my freshman year. It was kind of an opportunity where I was going to a place where I was going to be able to play at the Division I level, but also didn't have the opportunity to play major minutes right away, which was really important to me. If I knew if I went somewhere and I was sitting, I wasn't going to be happy. So I had the opportunity to go in and be the starting point guard from day one in a program that we were building from the ground up. But within 4 years, we were in a conference championship, and I made the right decision and played for the right college coach.
Perfect. Now, let me ask you this. This is off subject. Are letters still a thing these days?
Not really. I mean, I haven't received one letter for a player of mine this whole season, with social media and text messaging and all that. I think the letter is now something that's ancient history.
Okay. But if I'm a player and I get a handwritten letter from a head coach, would that carry more gravity since it would take more time to do that, or is it just gone? Is that just the way of the Pony Express now?
It's a good question. I think it should. I think it should show that someone's putting time into you. If I was getting a weekly letter from a head coach, because it's so different now, I think it may be something that would have an effect on a kid. But, kids are different now with their phones and social media and all that. So that's really what they're caught up in these days.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So then you went from your career at Quinnipiac to be a coach at Hofstra, Fordham, and then Bryant. Let's talk about your days as an assistant coach. What was your recruiting strategy? I mean, you're coming right out of college and you're a grad assistant and you've got to start recruiting kids. Was it going to high school gyms? Was it AU tournaments? Was it making phone calls? Walk me through your strategy on how that started.
It's kind of a combination of all of it. I had some good relationships. Being that my dad was a coach, and I knew when I was done playing, I wanted to be a coach. I started building relationships at a young age. So I knew the AAU coaches in the metropolitan area. And so I recruited those AAU programs and those high school programs. The New York City Catholic League was one of the best leagues in the country. So I knew those head coaches through my father. So I was blessed to get a little bit of a head start because of some of the relationships I had. But I did all that stuff, the writing letters, the phone calls, the going to high school games and practices, the long drives and trips. I remember recruiting prep schools, going up to Bridgeton Academy as a grad assistant to see Bridgeton against MCI. So I did a little bit of it all.
What's the secret? If you're an assistant coach that wants to be a good recruiter, like what's the secret?
It's about
Or is there a secret?
relationships. I think it's about relationships. And it's gotten a little different now with NIL and the amount of money being thrown around. But for a long time, it was a straight relationship business. You had to build relationships with the coaches. And then once you're involved with players, building a relationship with them, their families and their handlers, and making people feel comfortable playing for you. And then showing them the experience is what you told them, that you've lived up to your end of the bargain in terms of player development, in terms of what they're going to get academically, what they're going to get out of the program, and that they're going to get their degree and have an opportunity to be a professional player if that's their goal and they're that type of player. So I think it starts with the relationships and then the honesty and living up to what you said you do for that student athlete.
All right, I'm going to pause here and take a detour. You just said get a degree. We're now in 2025, and we're talking about transfers, NILs, JUCO rulings, academies, prep schools, all this stuff. Does the degree even come up anymore in conversations, or where does that stand in today's market?
I think it depends on the level. I think if you're talking about a Division III, Division II kid, obviously it's the most important thing because those aren't guys who are in the recruiting space of NIL money and being professionals. And I'm sure they do want to play professional basketball, but for them, they're going to college to get their degree first. And then if they have an opportunity to play after that, that's the cherry on top of the cake, But I think as you move up a level, I don't think it's a big part of the conversation. I think NIL money and what can you do for me and what position can you put me in to play professionally. I think those are the big topics now, where it used to be get your degree and then let's put you in a position to make money after college. Now really the starting point of the conversation is how much money can I make while I'm in college?
Right. And then after your assistant turn, you became head coach of Bryant, and you kind of had a unique way of giving out offers. Can you kind of share with the listeners out there who might not be familiar with it, kind of your out-of-the-box thinking on that?
Yeah. I was trying to recruit the top players in the country. And we offered a lot of guys, and they were usually top, 150, 200 players in the country, and then the top junior college players in the country, top prep school players in the country. And a lot of them were guys we probably couldn't get. But it was kind of for two reasons. One, Bryant had been in Division I school for 8 years and not had any success at the Division I level when I took over. So I wanted to get the Bryant name and brand out there. So when you were going on Twitter, you'd see a kid had offers from Duke, North Carolina, Michigan State, and Bryant. And a lot of people looked at that and said, well, why is Bryant offering this kid? But they're saying Bryant's name. So I think in terms of the marketing piece, I think it was a good thing just to get our name out there. And then the second piece was transfers. I came from my own college where at the time we were recruiting a lot of transfers. So if it was a kid that you recruited a little bit and you offered a scholarship to and they went to a higher level and it didn't work out, now you've already recruited him. He's already had a scholarship offer from you. So there was no transfer portal at that point, but when he decided he was going to make a move, sometimes you were ahead of the game in terms of getting him on the bounce back. So I thought it put us in position where we could recruit and get involved with better transfers than some guys because we had already been recruiting them beforehand.
Yeah, love it. Love the bounce back. But walk me through this. Where did you come up with this idea? Was it in a court? Was it in a sports bar one night? Was it with your assistants in the locker room? Where did the seed germinate?
It was one of my little brain childs I'm an outside the box thinker and always try and find a way to get ahead. And it was something that I started doing at Iona because we were taking a lot of transfers. And I said, well, why don't we offer these kids scholarships now? If you can get one of them, great. You're probably not going to, but we made a couple top 5 lists for kids that were down to UConn and St. John's. And so you see us on their final 5. And then if it doesn't work out at that school, now on the bounce back, you're in their top 5 schools. a lot of these kids we were actively recruiting, knowing we're probably not going to get them, but let's build a relationship, knowing that if it doesn't work, we can get them on the rebound. And then when I got to Bryant, I kind of made it something that we're going to hang our hat on doing.
Did you have any other outside the box ideas that you incorporated while at Bryant?
I mean, we were way ahead of the curve on the NIL stuff. We were paying guys through NIL way before anyone else at our level was. Our league didn't even understand the NIL stuff, and we already had guys that were on our payroll, I'll call it. But we were way ahead with a lot of things NIL-wise in terms of at our level, we had the largest mid-major collective in the Northeast. And I just thought it was something that I didn't know it would turn into what it did, but I just knew it was a way to get an advantage. So it was something that I put a lot of time into with our donors and with friends of mine in the city that had some money and wanted to be involved with the program. We're able to get some players that we probably wouldn't have been able to get, and they've still been able to retain some players even now that they probably wouldn't have been able to without the collective that we put together.
Awesome. And then while you're at Bryant, your first year, you tripled the wins the next year, right?
Yeah.
Once again, what was your secret on that? Was that bringing in talent through the collective, or what can you point that to?
Year one, that was just sweat equity. You know, we returned a group that won 3 games the year prior, brought in a couple pieces that were good pieces that kind of helped change the culture a little bit and were a talent upgrade. But we just changed the whole culture of what we were doing, and it was a culture of work. You know, we lived in the gym doing individual. Our conditioning program was different. The way we practiced was different. We were practicing for 3 hours a day. So just the work ethic was something a lot of those kids weren't accustomed to, and it wasn't what they came to Bryant for. You know, I told guys all the time, I'm going to give you everything I can to make you successful, but I also know I wasn't the guy that recruited you. So it's a little bit different. I do things in a different way, and I just think you have to work at a certain level to be successful. So we're able to kind of turn the corner where early on we were butting heads a little bit with some of those guys because the work we were putting in was a little bit of a different level. We got them to buy in, and we're able to have some success.
Yeah, no, it was great to see your time there. And now you are now at the Knox School on Long Island, prep school, feet from the beach, and beautiful location you got there. Tell us about the Knox School. Give us your pitch on the program and then the school itself.
You know, you have a beautiful campus. It's New York's oldest private boarding school. You know, it's a situation where you can get a great academic situation in addition to, I think, a really good basketball situation. You know, we put a ton of time into player development, and we're getting our guys exposure at the highest level, played in 6 national tournaments. So I think it's a place where, A, you can get a really good education and move on and, you know, go to a high-level academic school. And B, basketball-wise, you know, we're in year 1 with 31-5 right now with championship game coming up this week, and then we'll go play in some portion of the prep school national championship. So what we've done in 1 year, this is a first-year program, you know, I think we have the building blocks of doing something pretty special here.
Yeah, and what's your goal? Like, what do you want to turn Knox into?
You know, I'd love to become a national power, a place that at first is giving kids exposure so they have the opportunity to be placed at the highest level of academic schools and also basketball programs. You know, guys who are a lower-level player to be able to get scholarships. You know, a kid with no scholarship offers can come here and leave with offers. We've had 6 kids who have come into school that had no scholarship offers coming in that have scholarship offers now. So put kids in position to get a free education and hopefully be a team that people talk about nationally and can compete with the national programs up in New England and throughout the country.
Yeah, and what's your guess classification as far as prep schools go?
We're playing in the Empire 8 conference. We're not in we're not in the NEPSAC right now. It's something we've talked about possibly trying to do. So we're an independent, you know, prep school right now, playing in an Empire 8 conference schedule and then playing national games and national tournaments.
All right. Question families always ask me, Jared, and you're familiar with this as well, being up there, is, you know, NEPSAC AAA, NEPSAC AA, Single A, Independent, IMG, Wasatch, Montverde, all these different schools that have different levels of, you know, talent or, you know, coaching or schedule. I want you to put on your former college assistant hat and head coaching hat. If you like a player, does it matter if they're at a AAA, AA, Single A, independent school, public, private, prep? Walk me through that.
No, I mean, if you're a good player and a good fit academically, I don't think it matters what level you're at or what school you're at for that matter. People are going to find you. Not a lot of kids get missed based on poor evaluations. I don't think kids get missed by where they are. If you can play, someone's going to find you, especially with the AAU circuit and guys being seen on the circuit. There's, multiple places where guys can get seen. So I think it's about finding the right fit for the student athlete, both academically and basketball wise. And I'm so huge on player development. I think you have to find a place where you're going to develop, because you don't want to be the same player in August when you arrive right on campus that you are when you leave the next, April or May. The player development piece I think is huge, but I don't think it matters where you end up. I think you want to be someplace you can play and are going to be put on the floor. I think that's number one, having the opportunity to earn playing time and to get the exposure you need. And then B, in a place where you're fit for the style of play, fit for the school, and somewhere where you're comfortable, because if a kid's not comfortable there, they're not going to have a good experience. So I think the comfort level is very important as well.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding this correctly, when you're at the college level, if you liked a kid, it didn't matter if it was AAA or single A?
No, it didn't matter to me what level the kid was playing at, as long as he was a talented player that I thought was talented enough to play for us and fit our level and fit our style. It didn't matter to me what AA, AAA, single A, didn't matter to me.
Right. Did you give more weight to a kid that went to a prep school versus coming out of a high school or just private school?
Without a question. I was very rarely recruiting a straight high school kid. And I took a lot of transfers too, but I like that extra prep year. I think it's big for players' development. I think it's big for them playing against other older guys and playing, New England prep schools, or even, us for that matter. You're playing against really good players. I mean, we've played Vermont Academy, South Kent, Bridgeton, OSL, Bridgeport Prep. You're playing against other really good teams and other Division I players. So you have a chance to A, get exposure against, and B, compete against higher level guys that I don't think you're getting at the high school level. And I think that extra year of maturity is really important, especially now where guys are so old because of the transfer portal and the COVID year, and now them possibly given the extra year if you go to junior college. There's so many reasons that guys are older that I think that extra year is really important.
Yeah, amen. I agree with that 100%. Let's go back to what you said about development. So one question families ask over and over again when they're looking at multiple schools is, what kind of development am I getting at this school? Or what development does this coach do? And walk me through your development. Like, are you doing it personally? Is an assistant coach doing it? What's that look like when you show up in August all the way till you leave the following May? Walk me through your development pitch at Knox.
Yep. So we're going to have 3 sessions a day. We're going to have an early bird session where guys can come in for skill work, which I don't make mandatory, but kind of becomes mandatory for the guys who want to be good players, because you get an hour skill work in before breakfast and before classes start. And I do that with my assistant coach. I have a player development coach who lives on campus, who's a dorm parent, so it helps having him around. He's here for early morning workouts and for evening workouts. We'll practice usually at 1 o'clock every day. We have a 1 to about 3:30 slot, so we'll get about 2.5 hours into practice. Then we'll usually have a weightlifting session after practice, 3 to 4 days a week. Then our guys will go back to the dorm, be able to relax, shower, take a little bit of time, go to dinner, do their study hall hours. And then at night, we'll have another skill session for guys who want to get extra work in. So from about 9 to 10 o'clock, guys can get back in the gym, get on the gun, get a skill session in with our player development guy. So we have, 3 sessions a day plus weightlifting. So to me, it's just going to expedite your curve when you're in the gym, have the opportunity to be in the gym that much. And, for guys who want to, I think it's big during that year to be able to expedite your curve. I don't think 1 practice a day is enough. And some programs are having their 1 practice a day, and out of season, guys are playing multiple sports. We don't have our guys doing that here. We have our guys training year round, which, again, I understand why places have guys play multiple sports. For us, it's just a year-round basketball thing. And again, we're trying to give our guys as much as we can in those, 7, 8, 9 months we have them, to help them take their game to the next level and be prepared, A, in terms of their development when they get to college, and B, just what it's going to take when they get there, because that's what your day is going to look like when you're in college. You're up at 6 a.m. for weightlifting, you're having individual workouts, you're having practice, you're having weightlifting sessions, you're having study hall. So it's similar to a college day, what we're doing here at Knox.
Yeah, I love it. Now, here's a question that comes up pretty common with my younger clients, sophomores and juniors, right? And a lot of families that don't know about reclassifying are constantly asking, should I reclassify when I go to a prep school, or just stay on the track I'm on and then do a post-grad year? Do you have an opinion on that? Or do you do it a certain way at Knox?
We can go either way with it at Knox. I don't think it matters. I mean, either way, we have a varsity program here as well. So we have a varsity program and a post-grad program, or we call it our national prep program, so we have some non-post-grad players playing on our national prep team. But we also have a varsity team. So for me, if you're coming to Knox and you reclass or stay in your class, if you want to do a fifth year, you play for my national team. So for us, it doesn't really matter which direction you go with it. I don't think it matters either way. If you're going to do a fifth year, you're going to do a fifth year. So I don't think the reclassifying piece matters as much as it did years ago when there were different rules. I think it mattered a little bit more where there was the rules were different, 8-10 years ago. But now the rules being what they are, I don't think the reclassifying piece matters. I think if you need it academically, you can do it. I think some kids do it for the AAU piece so they can play that year down, which to me, I don't think makes a lot of sense. I think you want to play against your class or older guys for improvement reasons. But some guys do it, have AAU coaches that want their guy to stay with a certain group, so they will have them reclassified for that reason. But for the high school and postgraduate reason, I don't think it matters either way. I think you can go either direction.
Yeah, as long as you get 5 years in.
Exactly.
Doesn't really matter. Okay, gotcha. If I'm doing a postgrad year at Knox, what are my academic requirements or options?
We have high school level courses as well as college level courses. We have 3 colleges in the area that we work with that have college level courses we offer. So it depends on a kid's track and what they need. If someone needs a core class for their academic eligibility, we'll make sure they're taking that core. But they're taking 5 or 6 classes. We have block scheduling where guys will be in class from 8 to noon every day and then have lunch. So they're block scheduled. So you have different classes on Monday and Tuesday. Again, you have the opportunity to take college level classes as well as high school level stuff, depending on what your needs are and what your wants are for it. Some kids want a lighter schedule because they're just here for basketball purposes. Some kids are trying to take college level classes because they're trying to get ahead academically. So we've had kids kind of go in both directions.
Gotcha. Okay. That varsity team you're mentioning, is that considered your second team or is it just like a varsity JV type situation?
It's a varsity team. They play in the PSA, which is a private school league here on Long Island. So it's not a second team really, as where it's a varsity team. We'll have 9 through 12 play varsity unless it's a kid who I'm going to put on my national team, which I have a couple of kids up with me this year. So when I recruit, I'm recruiting for my national team, and I have a varsity coach to kind of do it, who's kind of a separate entity.
How many people you want ideally on your national team?
13 to 15. With injuries and with different things that happen during the year. Sometimes kids don't last for certain reasons. I want to at least be at 13 guys.
And what are you looking for in a player, Jared?
I want a kid who's hungry and wants to get better. To me, that's the most important thing because player development is number one for me here. I want to get these guys better. I want them to go from, if you have Division III recruitment to get you to the scholarship level. If you're a scholarship player, get you to the highest level we possibly can. So, for me, it's kids who love to play, kids who are hungry and tough and competitive. But the biggest piece is the love for the game. I want skilled players who can pass, handle, and shoot just because our style. We play fast offensively. We're averaging over 100 points a game this year. So I want guys who can play a certain fit, guys who can make threes, but guys who love it and really have a passion for it is the most important thing for me, and have something to prove with a little bit of chip on their shoulder that their recruitment's not at a certain level and they want to play at a higher level.
Yeah, love it. And how are you finding your players? Now, I know obviously when you came in last year, you didn't have much time, but you still built a pretty good team. Now that you're figuring out the prep school landscape, how are you going to build your team for next year? Like, what's your process on that?
Going through relationships I have, having coached at the college level for 21 years, knowing a lot of guys at the grassroots level, knowing some college guys who are looking to play as kids, working with guys like you who have their hands on so many good players and so many guys who are good fit for a prep school like ourselves. So it's kind of three pronged, through the high school and AAU relationships I have, through my college relationships, and working with someone like yourself who, again, has done this for a long time and knows kind of the guy who could be a good fit for me. Getting calls from guys like yourself on players that you think could be a good fit for us.
Now, talk to me about your placement strategy. Obviously, with the JUCO ruling potentially, the transfer portal, NIL, all of this, it's a mess out there. And I tell families over and over again, you need an advocate in the prep school world. And you're an advocate for your players, right? But what's your strategy? Is it getting guys in the gym in the fall? Is it picking up the phone? Walk me through that.
It's a combination of all of it. Trying to get as many guys in the gym in the fall as possible to get an early look at our guys. For me, getting on, once I've seen our guys and have a real feel for them and level, getting on the phone with coaches and telling them about the guys we have and some guys who could be a good fit. Again, I just have a lot of relationships, haven't done it a long time. And, especially once I get a feel for, it's easier when you coach a guy to say where they can play. Like Division I guys will ask me, could they have played for you at Bryant? And there's certain guys that I've said, having coached him, I say yes, because I see what his work ethic is and I see how much better he's gotten from September till here in February, and I see what his ceiling can be. So, being around the guys on a daily basis and knowing their work ethic and their toughness and their competitiveness gives me a feel for what kind of level they can play at. So I think number 2 is getting on the phone, and number 3 is getting them exposure through tournaments. We played in 5 tournaments up in New England. We're playing one more this year. We played in 2 tournaments in New York. So getting our guys out there and getting them the exposure where they're going to be college coaches so they have a chance to play in front of guys and get seen.
And next summer, will you be playing in the live Scholastic weekends?
We will. We played in one this past summer up in Jersey, and we'll do the same thing. We'll play in Philly, and we'll play in Jersey again.
What do you see as the future of prep school basketball?
I mean, it's a good question. I think kids need an extra year. I think it's hard coming out of high school unless you're one of those elite guys to play at the level you want to play at. I think that extra year playing against really good players, being coached by, again, someone, and there's a million good prep school coaches out there, but I can advocate for myself as someone who did it at the Division I level for 21 years. I just know what it takes. I tell our guys that a lot. I've seen it with my own eyes. I know what it takes to play at that level. I can prepare you with the work it's going to take. So you guys aren't going to be behind the 8 ball in terms of how hard you need to work. Here we are, we played 36 games. We're going to play at least 4 more. So you're talking about a 40-game schedule as opposed to a 20-game high school schedule. So you're playing 40 games against other really good players. So I think that year just expedites your curve a lot. So I think it's something that guys have used and will continue to use, because I just don't think a lot of people are recruiting kids straight from high school unless they're those elite players.
Yeah, and you guys play college rules?
We do play college rules.
What's the benefit of playing college rules versus playing high school rules? Is it just an easier, more seamless transition for the kids?
So. I think the 40-minute game is an adjustment. For guys who are playing a lot of minutes, the 40-minute game is an adjustment. I think shooting from the 3-point ball from the college line is a big adjustment. That was one of the things. We'd have freshmen come in from high school who were good shooters in high school and would struggle early with the college line just because of their range. So I think playing with the college line is important. And I think being officiated by, we have really good officials. We have college guys doing our game, being officiated by college officials who just came from doing an NEC or a MAC game and are coming to do one of our games. I think the level of physicality and kind of being prepared for what being officiated in a college game is, I think guys get that as well.
Love it. This is a question I ask every prep school coach, Jared, and you're very well qualified to answer this, but what does it take to be a D1 guard?
I mean, you need to be really skilled. Obviously the size and physicality piece, I think, matters even more so now because guys are just older at that level. So I do think the physicality piece is something. And, I think I have some kids who are skilled enough to be Division I guards, but maybe a year or two away, it could end up being guys who go Division II and end up in the portal in a year or two, transferring up just because the physicality level is something that's different. And it's why guys are taking so many transfers, because they want guys who are ready-made physically. But I think the skill set, I think the basketball IQ is something that can really jump you ahead if you know how to play. There's not a ton of guys out there who know how to play the basketball the right way in terms of sharing the ball, throwing the ball ahead, getting the lane, make plays for others. I think those are things that, are really important. And the ability to shoot the ball is kind of the thing that separates you. Guys who can make shots can play at any level. Elite shooters, to me, can play at the highest level because at worst you're a specialist. There aren't a ton of elite shooters out there. So I think the ability to make shots is a skill that is a real separator.
Got it. Let's put your hat back on, your head coaching hat now. And let's assume that the NCAA moves forward with the 15 scholarship option, right? How do you build a team? Like, how many of your players are transfers? How many are JUCOs? How many are prep school / high school development kids? How many are foreigners? Like, walk me through the ratio that you would put together.
I don't know what my ratio would be. I do know that there would be back-end guys, and of the 15, I shouldn't say back-end, but guys that I think are not developmental guys or guys who might not be physically ready yet, or there's one skill that they're missing that they might need to improve on. then now I'm taking if I have 15 because I have a chance to develop them a little bit more. I think that 15 scholarship limit is going to really add to the prep school recruiting because I think guys will be more apt to take a kid that is close but might not be right there yet in terms of being able to be an impact guy from day one. They can take him and maybe he'll end up being better than they think and he will be able to help from day one. Or you have time for some development, which is the way it used to be in the past where guys were redshirting and getting that extra year to get ready. Now you can take a kid and the development doesn't have to be as quick. And you could have him in the gym and kind of have some more time to develop him and have the little bit of a window where it's not, okay, this guy's got to be ready to be a starter in my top 7 immediately, where you can have a guy who can say, all right, by year 2, I need him to be an impact guy, or by year 3, so you have a little bit more time to get them where you need them to be.
Right. Now, you do take a player as a freshman. They start doing really good. First team all-conference, freshman of the year. And you got to worry about him now leaving and going to a higher level program to get more money. And I know you had to deal with that probably a little bit at Bryant. Like, what would you do internally to try to keep those kids around? Or would you say, hey, this is the market, you've earned it, I can't hold you back? Like, what was your strategy on that?
If it's a kid who's going to make significantly more money and then has an opportunity to transfer up to a Power 5 school, I wouldn't stop him from doing it. I would tell him to do it. Some of this is life-changing money for kids. They have a chance to start their lives with real money in their pockets. So I don't think you can hold them back. I mean, I think you do the best job with them you can in terms of your relationship, player development. Hopefully you have enough money in your collective to try and keep them around as long as possible. But at some point where it's a kid that if he's that good and has an opportunity to transfer up to that higher level and make that kind of money, I don't think you can hold him back from doing it.
But doesn't that frustrate you if you're the one that developed them and spent the time and the sweat equity getting them to that level? Or
It does, but it's part of the deal right now. It's part of the deal, and you kind of have to understand that sometimes you're taking a kid knowing if you get a really good freshman, knowing I might only keep this kid for a year or 2, but let me get everything I can out of him. I'm going to develop him because I want him to help me as much as I can. And I promised this kid in his recruitment that I'm going to develop him and I'm going to live up to my end of the bargain.
Gotcha. Would you now, as a head coach in the college ranks, would you look at D2 or D3 players that were really good?
Absolutely. I think, again, those kids are just a year older, and sometimes people make mistakes. They pass on a kid for whatever reason, that kid who might not have been physically ready or the kid who might have been a little bit too small, and then they're just better than you thought they were going to be, and they're good enough to transfer up. You're starting to see that all the time now, teams building around. Drake has 4 starters who came with Ben McCullum from Division II level, and they're 21-4, I think, right now. So I think if you can get guys who play basketball the right way and go to the right school, develop, and are better players by the time year 2 or year 3 rolls around, those are definitely kids that you have to take a look at.
Yeah. Interesting times. You ready to do some quick hitters?
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, real quick question. This will be a quick hitter. Who's the biggest player you ever missed on? Like an email came in or a coach called you about him and just didn't float your boat at the time, but then they blew up later and you said, I missed that guy.
Probably the Kai Ziegler, who's probably the best point guard in the country right now. He was playing for Jimmy Salmons, didn't have any Division I scholarship offers. I was going back and forth between him and a transfer. I waited too long. He ended up not kind of disgruntled because we didn't go on him right away. He ended up waiting it out, ends up at Tennessee, and is now, a first team, probably All-American and probably the best point guard in the country right now. And we had him. He had no scholarship offers at the time, and I waited too long.
Interesting. And what do you do? Will you just say, I'll get the next one? What's your mental makeup when something like that happens?
Yeah, you're going to miss on some. You can't get them all right. To me, it's more about you can't get a lot wrong. If you get a lot wrong, you bury yourself, and it's hard to get yourself out of. If you miss on someone, you kick yourself for it, but you try and go get the next good one and hope you can make up for it.
Yeah. All right. Best player you ever played against during your playing career?
I played against some good ones, but my freshman year, my first game in college, I was at Quinnipiac. It was our first year Division I, and my first matchup was against Khalid El Amin. And I remember guarding, whose son I'm actually recruiting right now to come to Knox, which is pretty funny. But I remember guarding the first play of the game. I'm 165 pounds, soaking wet. I don't realize how strong and good he is. Takes a couple dribbles. I'm on his hip. He puts his hip into me. I'm on the basket support on the ground. He's shooting a layup and one. So he was probably the toughest matchup I remember playing against in college just because how physical what he was and how hard he was to guard.
Cool. How about coaching at any of your places? The best player you've ever coached against?
I'd go with Joel Embiid, the freshman at Kansas. That's when they had the Wiggins kid who was their highest profile guy, but Joel Embiid was just so skilled. He was a freshman. He made a couple spin moves and up and unders. You don't see that from a kid that size. He was terrific.
Gotcha. What's your favorite movie?
Probably Hoosiers. I grew up loving Hoosiers. It's a movie I've probably watched about 200 times. That's one you could never get tired of.
Have you been to the gym where they filmed it?
I have not.
Okay. Knightstown, Indiana, about 20 miles east of Indianapolis, and it's open all the time. And it's in a little suburb, so it's not like it looks in the movie, but you can play games there actually.
Really?
So I'm thinking Knox School versus, somebody, La Lumiere there next year.
I like it. I like where your head's at. That would be unbelievable. I'm going to look into doing that one. You got my wheels spinning now.
Yeah. All right. And then what's your hobbies when you're not on the basketball court?
Spending time with my family. I was at the college level for so long and, lost so much time with my children and my family that for me, it's when I'm not here, I'm with my family, making up for that lost time and, helping my children, working them out, playing ball with them and trying to develop them and just spending time with my kids and my daughter. And I'm really enjoying that. The difference between being in college and all that time you spend away from them, now making up for that lost time.
Yeah, that's so great you can do that now. Well, look, we've chatted a lot about you, about Knox. Is there anything you want to mention before we get off the podcast?
Yeah, we have a great situation here. I know it's, again, year one, 31-5, been able to really develop some guys. And I think what we're building here is pretty special. And I think we're doing it the right way with the right type of people. And hopefully for those looking for a postgraduate situation or a prep situation, hopefully we could be a great fit.
Absolutely. Well, Coach Jared Grasso at the Knox School, thanks so much for joining us on the Prep Athletics Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Corey.
Yeah, if you guys like this, be sure to subscribe so you can get every episode. And go to prepathletics.com, sign up for the newsletter so you don't miss out on anything. We got a lot of signings coming up, a lot of good information in the newsletter, especially in this changing market. I want to make sure you guys are informed. So thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you all next time. Take care.